This is another episode of Talks with Tyler ISD, a podcast about the passionate people who have a heart for students. This podcast is brought to you by Texas Bank and Trust. Welcome to Talks with Tyler ISD. I'm your host, Jennifer Hines, and our guest for today is Weldon Davis, Owens Elementary School Principal. Welcome so much. So excited to have you here with us today.
Well, thank you very much. I'm a big fan of the podcast. I listen to it every week, so I'm excited to be here and be on it.
You finally made it. You've made the podcast cut.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, we're excited to have you back in East Texas. You're an East Texas native, but you've done some of your career elsewhere around the state. Tell us a little bit about what led you. I mean, what kind of made your decision that education was what you wanted to go into?
So like you said, I'm a Henderson, Texas native by way of Panola Junior College. I played baseball there for 2 years before transferring to Texas A&M University.
Yeah.
My wife, Lily, was my high school sweetheart, and
Aww.
She gave me an ultimatum to come to Texas A&M or continue my baseball career, and I definitely made the correct decision.
Good.
And so after that, made it to the Metroplex. She had accepted a position in the Dallas Metroplex. So I thought that I had wanted to do a different career. And funny story, actually, when I was transferring to Texas A&M, Panola didn't offer 2 biology courses that I needed to get into Texas A&M. And so I had to have this conversation with the dean. And my dad, he went on this trip with me, and while we're in the office with the dean, he asked me what I want to be. I say I want to be a dentist.
And
he tells me, a lot of people don't become dentists. A lot of people, so I need you to kind of think about what's your backup plan. And so I sat there for a couple seconds and I said, I think I'm going to be a teacher. I'd love to be a teacher. My mom's a teacher. She's an educator in the East Texas area as well. And so we walked out of that, and my dad goes, I'm not sending you to Texas A&M if you're going to be a teacher. And I said, I'll show you. And so, one thing led to another. I went through my biology degree. Pretty early on, I realized that being a dentist wasn't actually what I wanted to be.
Yeah, you felt the calling to education and teaching children.
Exactly. So, I was involved in church and, church ministries, teaching there, involved with like youth and kids. And so I always had a pull in that direction. And went to my first career fair as an education career fair. Kind of walked around a little bit lost because I didn't have, necessarily the education vocabulary to speak with a lot of the principals that were there. And I found this one really friendly guy. His name was Bill Porter. He was an old principal in Mesquite, an old elementary principal there. And we just kind of chatted back and forth. He invited me up. They had a position that started in January. So I went up there and just kind of tried it out. I was technically in like a super sub or a permanent substitution role. And it was really good for me because I learned how to work a classroom before I had to learn how to actually write a lesson plan.
Right.
And so I got to know kids. I got to know how to interact with kids, relate with them, how to manage a classroom. And so I was really set up for success through that position, through that conversation, through Mesquite, to kind of further my career in education. Just fell in love with it. And so,
So he was really instrumental in giving you that experience, you realizing that you're like, yes, this is really what I want to do. And then you went on into education. Tell us a little bit about what all you've taught, what you've done. Physics, I know, is one of the ones which most people are like, physics,
I know. It always impresses people more than it should. In college, obviously I was a biology major, so I took physics. And when I was in physics and as a college student, I would actually pick the answer opposite of what I thought the correct answer was. And you aced it, I'm sure. I did better doing that than I actually did solving the physics course. So it wasn't actually till I was, forced to teach physics. And, college physics is a little different than high school physics.
Right.
It's a lot of 3 variable equations and conceptual stuff, I know.
Oh, yes.
Nerding out a little bit right now. But
I loved science. I took 5 sciences in 4 years, and of course physics was one of them. Actually, physics was my hardest one. I aced all the others, but I just remember in high school, I would always make an 89 on every test, and it was like trying to break into that A. For some reason, I could just never get there. I'd ace all of my daily work and quizzes, and then for some reason, the physics test, it'd get me.
We always put 1 or 2 trick questions on there just to trick
right.
people a little bit. But, I taught for 5 years at North Mesquite High School. I have nothing but good things to say about Mesquite and North Mesquite, my leadership there. They gave me every opportunity in the world to lead, inside my classroom and also outside. And
then you were promoted, assistant principal.
Yeah, and so I went through the interview process as soon as I had my certification, talked to a few middle schools, but ultimately I ended up moving down the hallway, to become an assistant principal at North Mesquite High School.
And then now you wanted to be back in East Texas.
Yep.
And now you're in the principal role.
Yep.
But you're kind of switching gears. You're jumping from the high school students to the little ones. How has that shift been for you?
The shift has been amazing, honestly. So it makes me a little sad that I didn't start out in elementary. The kids are incredible. The families are incredible. The involvement. You do not have to work for kids to like you. They like you implicitly and with full trust.
They're going to come and hug you, and they are going to tell you some of the silliest things just out of the blue.
And it's a lot of fun. The pre-K kids, they can hug about as high as my knee.
Yeah.
And then, the rest of them, there's a pretty big gap between pre-K and fifth grade. And so it's been pretty interesting to see that transition also. But for me, I saw high school, and I saw at that point a lot of their trajectories are set in the early grades, and so I wanted to be a part of the elementary process then to see, where are these gaps opening, what strategies can we implement to close them, how can we ensure that all students, when they get to that secondary level, have the foundations to be post-secondary ready.
And you also have 2 daughters, and now you don't have to wait as long if you were at a high school campus for one of them at least to get onto your campus.
Yeah, so 2 little girls, June and Ruby. June is about to turn 4 in April, and Ruby just turned 2 last weekend. And so June will be an Owens Eagle next year in the pre-K program. And I'm very excited for her to be on my campus. I think it's going to add a whole new dynamic, and I'm very excited to be her principal. I think at the elementary age, she'll be very excited that I'm her principal. I'm not so sure at the high school age she would be as excited
that, it's like, oh, Dad. Yeah.
I know.
Okay, but the real question is has she seen you dress up as the mascot?
Oh, my goodness. No, she has
She
not.
hasn't, because I have, and
there's some pictures floating around.
There are some pictures floating around. So for those that are listening, go find these pictures because it is a little hysterical. Weldon, you are 6'5". So let's just say that the eagle costume, mascot costume, is probably meant for somebody that's like 5'10", maybe, like even 5'8", not sure.
So my first mistake was not trying it on. So it was our Star Celebration pep rally for being a campus last year, and we had all the kids in, and I was going to pop out in this eagle costume. And a funny story about that is the first time I tried it on was about 5 minutes before the ceremony started, and I'm behind stage, and I actually can't get it over my head either, so I don't know if it was made for a small kid or whatnot, but it definitely wasn't made for me.
It was not made for a 6'5" man. No. Oh my gosh.
So my AP Brandy came in, and we made a couple of cuts into the fabric of it the way it could fit on my head, and then busted out. And I didn't realize till later that the eagle feet were about a foot above my actual
above
feet.
Your actual feet. Yes, it is a great picture to see.
But the kids loved it.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, of course, and of course they probably figured out that it was you because there are not a lot of people your height walking around in elementary school. They're all way shorter than you.
I think for a couple of weeks the pre-Kers
they were just
they thought I was a chicken. So there was a little while that I had to explain to them that I was actually the Owens Eagle.
The Owens Eagle, that you were the mascot. Tell us a little bit, speaking of the campus, about your leadership style.
Well, I would say that my leadership style is an average of the 2 principals that I served under. So I worked for one who was very systems oriented, did not like the spotlight on him. He wanted everything to be about the students. So he was behind the scenes servant leader. You would find him pushing a broom. You would find him doing whatever he needed, for the teachers to get done. My other principal was a very charismatic leader. He was the face of our campus. He built very strong relationships with students. He was in the cafeteria all the time and not just sitting on the side. He was sitting at the table. He was engaging, having conversations. He was amazing with talking with parents and community. And he was really good at having the school rally around him. And so I would like to think that I'm an average of those 2 individuals. I like my nose in the weeds a little bit, poring over spreadsheets or data. I've been known to push a broom in our own campus or making sure something gets cleaned or done. But at the same time, let me say this, I know that I'm a figure of this campus, right? And people look to me for steadiness, steadfastness on the campus. And so I also want to build those relationships in the community with our parents, families, students. I've been known to be seen at recess or, sitting down and having lunch with my
is that
students.
how you like to relate to the students? I mean, tell me a little bit about that. You said you'd like to go to recess. Do they get you involved in like a basketball game or throwing the football or like what goes on at recess or lunch?
Yeah, and when you go out there, you think we're going to do a little pickup game real quick for 10 minutes, on my way to another observation or back to the office or something. But what really happens is all the kids see you and they just swarm to you. And so basketball comes like swarm ball, and it doesn't actually turn
swarm
into
ball.
No.
Yeah, because again, that age, they are so loving and so sweet. I love to hear that. So what are some other ways that you have found that you like to relate to the students? You mentioned recess, also sitting down and having lunch with them. Do you kind of rotate through the grades, I'm sure, at lunchtime?
Yeah, so I always like to make a pass through there, spend some time in there, just making sure, all of our monitors are there, or that, things are well taken care of, covered. And what I'll do is, I'm not the best at taking my lunch. My wife probably doesn't love that. And so I'll often go to the lunch line, grab my lunch, and then, instead of taking it back to my office, I'll just sit down with a group of kids. And it's a little bit random. I don't, I'm not very strategic about it, but I just see an open seat, next to a kindergarten table, or it may be a 5th grade table, and have a conversation with them, ask how their days are going. And a lot of times they clam up. They don't know exactly what to ask me.
What do I say to the principal? Am I in trouble? Yes.
So then it becomes a game of, 21 questions where I'm just asking them questions about their day and how things are going. But it's been a really good experience. There's 670 kids on my campus, so it's a great way for me to get to know them better, know them by name. And that's what I'm constantly striving for, is to know each and every one of them, individually.
Oh, I love that. Well, we've covered students. Let's talk a little bit about your staff and your teachers. What are you doing there to kind of help motivate them, support them? I mean, that's the role of the principal, is to make sure that they are prepared to turn around and support the students.
Yeah, I think without question they have the most difficult job in the building. The lesson plan demands making sure rigorous instruction is being delivered, but also being relational, also providing an element of fun to the day and engagement and conversation. So it's like from 7:30, I have teachers that are there from 7 to 5 and even 6 o'clock on a lot of days, and so they love their job, and it's my job to provide support and all of, the care, love, attention, anything for their well-being that I possibly can. And so that's what I'm constantly on a mission to see, is like, how can I take care of my teachers? How can I, how can I make them feel like the professionals they are? And so that's what I'm constantly striving for.
I love that. And what about parents? It takes a village. We've all said it. You got to have everybody involved, and parent involvement is huge. Tell me a little bit about how you've been building relationships with parents at the Owens campus.
So this is a little bit anecdotal, but I've been told that Owens has the highest Raptor report, which, that's how they check into the building. Right. The highest Raptor report of any elementary campus.
Okay, that means you have a lot of volunteers on campus. For those that don't know what Raptor is, that's your volunteer check-in system.
So we have people coming in 24/7 all day, whether they're helping out with kindergarten, reading groups, pulling kids out to the hallway. We have, our local Day Spring Methodist Church that also sends volunteers all the time that come in.
That's wonderful.
We have tons of events on campus where family is invited. And, I want them to be there anytime the doors are open, that they have the opportunity. We have, 40 some odd teachers, we have, 80 staff, but every one of our kids has a parent or 2 parents that are also contributing to the lives. And so we have them for, 8 hours a day. They have them for the rest of the time. And it needs to be a partnership between us and those parents to know that, what we're doing on our campus is, in the best interest of students, and also in line with what they want to accomplish for their students. And so we welcome them. We love the relationships. I'm getting to know a lot of them now. I see them in the community. And so it's been a really fun experience for me getting to know them.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me a little bit about some of the goals that you have for your campus.
Coming in for the first semester.
Right. You're really just kind of getting a lay of the land.
Right. For the first semester, coming from high school, there was a lot that I needed to learn. And, coming into an A campus, taking the reins over from Ms. Sherman, who did a fantastic, amazing job at Owens. There was a lot to learn, a lot to observe. And so for me, one of my goals is to not tear down fences, that have been put in place before I know why they were built. And so observing, seeing what's been effective, seeing what's been important. And then in the second semester, some of my goals are to take that and refine it. So my campus has amazing Tier 1 instruction. If you go into a classroom, you're going to see small groups. You're going to see kids engaged. You're going to see kids collaborating with each other.
Yeah. You definitely inherited a well-oiled machine. Of course, there's always room for, like you said, those tweaks and refinement and all of that.
So what we're working on right now is like our tier 2 instruction. So what does our intervention look like? Are our teachers aware of the gaps that can form of students? My favorite question is like, how do we know that they've learned, right? So that's the main thing. What does our formative assessment look like? What are our, how do we know that whatever the teacher intended for them to learn on that day, that kids are going home that evening with that information, with mastering that learning target? And if not, what are we doing to intercede on their behalf?
So for somebody that's not in the education world, what do you mean by tier 1 and tier 2?
So
they understand
tier 1 is like the basic instruction that takes place in the classroom. And so, like I said, that's our small groups. That's our direct teach. That's the learning targets that we put on the board every single day, making sure that we have good strategies that are taking place in the classroom. That way students can best learn that. Tier 2 is differentiating that tier 1 instruction to be more specific to the student. How are we intervening? Are we looking at their assessment data? Are we looking at our formative assessment data, our qualitative data? Do we have an idea and pulse on each individual student? That way we can direct and tailor that instructional programming to that student.
To that, it's like an individualized.
Yeah, it's much more specific.
I love that. Well, and congratulations. You mentioned it earlier, but y'all did get a TA rating of an A, which is the highest that y'all can get. Where do you go from here? I mean, that's pretty big. You're going to have to, it's like, okay, now you got to hyper focus on something else. Like, what are you doing there?
So I played college sports, but I'm not necessarily a big sports guy. Like, I'm not watching ESPN all the time. So I've done a single sports metaphor when talking to my teachers this whole year, and I promised them that it would be the only time I use a sports metaphor. But at the very beginning of the year, I showed a picture of the Los Angeles Rams and the New England Patriots, and I said, what do these two images tell you? And so we had some dialogue around it, and essentially, the Los Angeles Rams won the Super Bowl last year, but this year they're not being very successful, right? And so they were a one and done kind of team. But when you look at the New England Patriots, they're consistent. They're in the playoffs year after year. They do it with players that other teams may not necessarily want. And so there's a fabric to that team where they rally around one dream, one focus, and they do what's best for the good of each other, right? And so, I have some teachers on my campus who do not like the New England Patriots. So they struggled with it a little bit at first, but they kind of got the message of like what we want to accomplish longevity. So last year was an amazing accomplishment. And you never want to be someone who doesn't celebrate that and only looks to the future. And so we spent some time celebrating it, but the mission is still alive, and we want to.
Yeah, you got to come back and do it again.
Yeah, we want to maintain that same academic expectation for all of our students year in and year out. So my goal is for as long as I'm the principal there, that we maintain the highest academic achievement, and we do the best by our students.
You kind of mentioned it at the very beginning of the podcast, but I know one of your goals is for the current Owens students to be leaders when they do get to that high school level. And you were saying that when you were in high school and you would see like where they had developed from, and now being there at the start to see what they're going to develop into, that's definitely a focus for you as well. Yeah,
so one of my favorite things is overrepresentation. And this is kind of a lagging indicator. I won't really know how they represent until they get to middle school or high school. But that's kind of like my motive, my mission. So, when you look at a CTE course, I want there to be an overrepresentation of Owens Eagles there. If you look at the top 10% when they pass through Legacy, I want there to be an overrepresentation of Eagles there. When you're looking at SAT, ACT scores, when you're looking at college entrance, military acceptance, I want there to be an overrepresentation of Eagles in those places. And so that also, a well-rounded student, not just academics. So sports, arts, those things are incredibly important and valuable, not only to the students' well-being, but also their soft skills. Like, how are they going to transition into the workforce?
So important.
And so when those kids are going to be, as they're overrepresented in those groups, they're going to be the ones that go into the, the Tyler community and are our leaders, our politicians, lawyers, doctors, but also, our future engineers, coders. They're going to come back and be our teachers. And so that's what I'm really excited about.
So you mentioned earlier too, parent involvement, the highest Raptor volunteer system check-in. What is your goal for parents to be involved? Is there anything that you're wanting or seeing a need for on your campus? where you would like for those that want to be even more active in your school do? Or
Yeah, so the unique thing about Owens is that we have a high population of parents who are former teachers that still want to get involved. So they have kids, they have young kids, they want to be stay-at-home moms or dads. And so what we're actually doing is we're inviting them into our campus to do a little bit more targeted instruction. So they're actually going through the Tyler ISD system. They're becoming substitutes essentially through temporary service hiring services, and we're going to utilize them as an extra set of hands to pull kids out into the hallways in a little bit more targeted way. So it's like a pretty exciting and innovative use of our title funds that we're going to invite these parents onto our campus who have these experiences and they want to get back and share, but in a more part-time capacity.
And they get to help with that individualized planning that you were talking about for those students, so that they can get that extra support, which is wonderful to hear. And then you talked about the soft skills, which I know we've got the Leader in Me district-wide, so giving students the opportunity to lead really does help them with some of those soft skills. Talk about some of the leadership opportunities and what your goals are there.
Yeah, so one of the first things I asked when I came here, when I was going through the interview process and being named the principal of Owens Elementary was, what is Leader in Me? It's not a program that I was familiar with. I was familiar with the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but not necessarily at the elementary. And so what I needed was something very concrete to point to and say, this is Leader in Me. So when you walk around our campus, you'll see photographs of our students. You'll see the language everywhere. If you go into a classroom, you may see the teachers teaching it or using the vocabulary when they're doing their direct instruction. So it's embedded a lot of times into what they're already doing, keeping the end in mind, or first things first, So you may hear that language all the time, but I wanted something concrete that I could point to and say, this is Leader in Me. And so we recently implemented in the second 9 weeks student leadership jobs, and it has been incredibly transformational for our campus and our students to have a voice on our campus. And so as you walk the hallways, you'll see we have what's called an ICE crew, and so they're passing out ICE to every single teacher and adult on our campus.
That's neat.
Our flags go up and down every single day now, and they used to not. They used to stay up, and they come down on bad weather days, and so that's a pretty amazing thing. We have a lost and found crew, and so when jackets are found, and sometimes that crew can actually be a little too efficient because those jackets get pulled to the lost and found very quickly instead of allowing
like, to go hey, back. The kid left it here 5 minutes ago. Yeah.
Our kids are cleaning up the tables after themselves. They're cleaning up their restrooms. There are things that and that's been the most amazing thing to me, but because there are things that students can and will do and are capable of even at the elementary level if just given the opportunity.
Yeah, so seeing them rise to the challenge. I mean, you wouldn't even think, that you could have a whole crew that is over the lost and found, because we all know that a lost and found on an elementary school campus for the most part is always overflowing. Everybody's always missing something.
It's amazing.
From water bottles to jackets, 10,000 jackets and sweatshirts. So I love that you actually have that as one of your jobs for them. And I think that's important. It gives them ownership in the decision-making process, and also being a part of the campus, and they get their own role, so to speak, their own job on campus.
Yeah, and I think leaders are created through opportunity, right? So without the opportunity, kids can't refine those skills. And so by providing them the opportunity, even if they're successful, we celebrate that, or even if they fail at it in some capacity, we support that. And so leaderships are created not only through the opportunity, but by giving the support to be successful, even if it takes 1 or 2 different opportunities. And so we're providing that at Owens.
I love that. So the second 9 weeks, you rolled out those job opportunities. Now we are halfway through the year. Talk about some of the magical moments that y'all have had. Tell me some of the celebrations that y'all have had so far.
Well, I mentioned the Star Pep Rally, and that's where the Eagle costume comes into play. And that was amazing. I don't think I've heard a single room that loud in my whole life when we projected the A score up on the screen. And so, it was a culmination of all their hard work last year, and they were incredibly excited to celebrate that. So that was a magical moment. A lot of the magical moments are little bitty moments that take place every single day. Like you said earlier, it's the hugs, or it's the teacher coming to me and saying, hey, look at this student. Look where they were on this assessment, and now look where they are. It's that idea
success
of incremental growth that they're experiencing from pre-K all the way up to 5. Being celebrated. Maybe a student had some difficulty with sitting still in class, and now that they're a year older, they're experiencing a lot of success, and they're in one of my student leadership jobs now. So it's like, it's kind of like this whole well-rounded thing. And I think the other thing is just seeing the kids in the community and being a part of the community. That's been really fun. A funny story, actually. So I'm on a church softball league, and we're
You're not very good.
We're not very good. And so I actually had a home run hit off of us, and I was in the outfield. The home run was hit directly over my head.
Oh no!
And as I jogged to the fence, serendipitously, one of my students popped out of a car and threw the ball back to me, and he goes, "Mr. Davis?"
What?
And so,
you're a real person?
Yeah.
You don't live at the school? What? Yeah.
And those are the kind of things that don't happen as often in the Metroplex with so many people commuting into work at the school that I used to work at. And so here it's been a lot of fun. That's like a very magical moment.
There's a choir concert, I think, where you had a moment as well.
Oh yeah. So, I stepped into a very high functioning school where a lot of things work, right? And so, I'm an outsider. I'm from the Metroplex. I'm originally from Henderson, but spent 10 years there. And so people early on are trying to feel me out. What's my leadership style going to be?
Who are you? Yeah.
Exactly.
What's going on?
Yeah. There was a moment at the most recent choir concert where I just kind of stood in the back and had a realization that, I've officially been adopted into the fabric of who this school is. I'm a part of it.
That.
I'm the figurehead. And decisions that I make or that my team make are going to have a positive impact on not only the school, but the community at large. And so to have that feeling of, being a part of a part of what this school and this mission is doing was really great for a vote of confidence as I lead this campus.
Absolutely. Well, tell me a little bit about Planes with Dads. That kind of sounds fun and maybe a little scary. I don't know.
Oh yeah. So this is one of our PTA events.
Yeah.
So essentially, we invited parents or dads to come in and make paper airplanes.
Okay, paper airplanes. Okay, good.
And so, a high-functioning PTA is a new thing for me, and so it's been pretty incredible to see
what they can pull off.
What they can pull off, and the number of stakeholders that come in, and so just being at it was a 6:30 p.m. We provided pizza, but seeing that many dads and kids, and it was granddads, dads, aunts, uncles. There was a whole lot of people that were in this, but seeing that many stakeholders come out made me know that I was in a really good place, that these kids are well loved and well taken care of, and that they're going to be okay and be successful in life.
Well, it's wonderful to see all the incremental growth taking place, everything that y'all have going on. Owens is an amazing campus. Congratulations again on an A.
Thank you.
Hoping for another A for this school year as well. What is it that you would like for those that are listening right now? Because I'm sure we're going to have a lot of Owens parents listening too, but those that are even outside our community or in our community, what's one thing that you would want them to remember about our talks today?
I want Owens to be a place that people are proud of to send their kids to, that they feel like it is a safe environment and that their kids are going to be well taken care of and that their trajectories in life are going to be set on, the trajectories they're going on are going to be initiated Owens to go on to Three Lakes and Legacy or some of our magnet schools if they choose that. I want them to know that under my leadership, they're going to be seen as kids. First and foremost, we're going to do our best by them instructionally, but we're also going to make them as well-rounded as we can in the arts, in future athletics. I love the kids when they come and talk to me about their extracurricular activities and their sports and the base hit they hit or the game. And so we're working with a well-rounded student. We're looking at the whole student and trying to take care of them. And we're doing that so these students graduate and come back to Tyler and then give back to our own schools, but also contribute to our community.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. Weldon Davis, Principal at Owens. We appreciate your time, your insight, and your leadership at Owens Elementary School. And thank you for joining us for Talks with Tyler ISD. If you would like to know about all things Tyler ISD, you can do two things for sure. You can download our Tyler ISD app, or you can even sign up for our district newsletter at get.tylerisd.news. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Texas Bank and Trust. Subscribe to Talks with Tyler ISD on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Please share this episode with your friends and family.